AI is replacing labor directly now instead of enabling
Mhm.
labor? Or how do you kind of see that interplay?
So I think the big difference is that since there's intelligence involved now, the age of reasoning, right? If
Mm,
you're deeper into AI, I mean, everybody says age of AI, but what it really is to me is like more and more this age of reasoning. But agents as well, it's not just the AI; it's the actual reasoning capability. That's what makes us human, right? It's the fact that we can, cogito ergo sum. Like I doubt, therefore I am. It's the fact that you can reason that makes you more human. So that is changing a lot. I think the pace we're seeing with new models, you mentioned deep research, these kind of like capabilities coming out, it really empowers us to break into new areas very, very fast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today we're thrilled to have Alain Denzler, founder of getitAI, a seasoned entrepreneur with a track record of building and scaling SaaS businesses. Before launching getitAI as a key player in Bootstrapping Pitcher, a sales enablement platform that grew from zero to double-digit millions of ARR. That's pretty impressive, and had a successful exit. And now he's reimagining commerce in the age of AI, transforming how brands engage customers. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Brian. Great to be here.
And I kind of giggled about your name because right before we started recording, it's like, well, it's actually Alan. The pronunciation in French is different. And so the I, you have to drop the I. But anyway,
Yeah, it's a silent I. I guess my parents didn't do me a favor. They didn't foresee that I'm going to have an intense time over in the US where that's just going to be an issue. And that's why I understand very much all the Allens in the US that have just no I or double L or so. It's just, it makes it easier, I guess.
L is common. Yeah, the I is definitely not there. I've never seen that
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah.
what inspired you to become a founder in the first place, and what led you to start Pitcher?
Well, I mean, it was kind of like I almost tripped into this. I was actually in pitch on pitcher side. I was a late founder. I was starting on the customer side. I was one of the big first customers. I believe very much in their vision. I helped actively start building product on the MSD side. So I was on Merck & Co. And that was just always the part I loved most. So I was just like, hey, what about this being my full-time job? And then Mert, the founder of Pitcher, was like, "Hey, I'd love to have you in." And so I transitioned over, and from there on, it was just like green field almost. And I love that feeling that you have if you can just imagine things. And that was kind of what I was doing at Pitcher. You kind of have a vision, you go out there. I sold the vision. I then went to the product team and be like, okay, let's do this, and then we built that vision out and launched it with the customers. And so it was like the full cycle. So it was really very interesting to see that you can take, I mean, that's the beauty of software anyway, right? You can take something as an idea, and there's some technical feasibility constraints, but other than that, creativity can be quite unbound. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love software. I'm so glad I got into it. For those who are not aware, what was Pitcher and kind of what was incubation like for that?
Pitcher, it's a sales enablement platform, like you said. The main focus, the inception point of Pitcher was when the iPad got introduced. So this big thing, the book of jobs. Everybody's like, "Whoa, what do you do with the iPad now? It's just a bigger version of an iPhone." But what actually are, what was the quest of Pitcher is like, let's make this now. This is the first time that a device has the reliability and the power of just being simple enough for a sales rep to take into a conversation. And this was a time that was 2011 where email marketing was always personalized and all these things that went quite normal. But if you had the one-on-one personal conversation and pitched like that, there was typically no software involved. It was just a human conversation. So now with iPads, it was the first time that people could take it in and actually go and show stuff. And that actually, if you show things to people, the likeliness of them remembering it is just like 10 times higher. That had a great effect. So we went in there. It was started out with marketing first, like pitching with the marketing material, but very quickly it started also having the CRM component to it. We became a very important partner of Salesforce. We had all the Salesforce then offline on the device all the time when you're like out in the field, and you don't have to wait 2 seconds every time you click or so. It's just like you have it in a conversation. That's something we also have now within Get It. If you're having a sales conversation, be it in B2B or now in commerce, you don't have the luxury of waiting or letting the person wait for a lot of like seconds. I make this comparison sometimes, like if you're having an interview with an AI avatar somewhere, like you want a job. You're not going to walk away because the guy's like, has latency of 15 seconds. Whereas if you're shopping, maybe somewhere sitting out in front of the TV on your phone, is swiping through Instagram or something, and then that thing just takes 10 seconds to load, you think something's wrong, and you just kind of click out of it again. So same thing with Pitcher there. Like we just had a Salesforce version that it helped Salesforce get into a lot of deals because we were like the door opener. We were very industry specific, vertically oriented in solving those problems that they had there in those verticals, way more than Salesforce initially had. And then Salesforce did a strategy shift and they started having more verticalized solutions. They understood that once you're in the door with an enterprise customer, you can kind of like expand your share of wallet very easily. So Yeah, but that was kind of the story.
And what were some pivotal moments in that growth story?
It was an interesting business model because it was bootstrapped in the way that it was a customer financed business model. That made you very dependent of the customers, and it was almost only S&P 500 companies. So pivotal moments were typically when we won customers because it weren't that many in like overall, because you don't need that many. Every time we close a deal, it was multiple $1 million over a few years, and it typically also had quite a while to digest those. But I think there was a categorized it as like three phases. One was the phase where it was still very small. There it was like everybody does everything. Then there was the phase where we went from like 10 12 people to 50 people. There you started specializing. That's where also my CTO and co-founder, which we built Pitcher out together also on that side there. We started building out like a team around us to have these industry specific solutions that we built. And then from 50, like after Corona, we had, I guess it's easier to say now. During Corona, it was hard to say we're already having a hardship. We had a very good Corona in sales wise, like many other software companies did. We had like a Zoom version for sales reps to be able to continue to be connected to their customers despite not having to be there in person, but only with verified content that was approved. Anyway, so long story short, after that, we came out really strong. We scaled up to like almost 200 people. And that was, of course, another pivotal moment. The culture shift was huge between those different versions of Pitcher. One was like a small little core team. The other one, like quite a cool unit still with 50. And at some point, like I felt it when I started not knowing the names of everybody in the company anymore. That was for me the moment where like, well, okay, now like who are you again? Like, that was special. And also we kind of
And they knew
overreached a
who
bit
you
there, I
were because
think.
you're, co-founders,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Yeah, that was different, yeah. But yeah, we were always a remote first, even before COVID, a remote first company, which was anyways a special dynamic. Yeah.
What are some takeaways from being a remote first company, especially in the early days before it was kind of mainstream?
Yeah, we even did before we were at Skype in the very beginning before Slack came up.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And so yeah, we were Skyping all the
I
time.
remember switching from
It
Blue
was
Jeans to Zoom, and that was a big deal.
yeah.
Yeah, remember that? Blue
Yeah.
Jeans.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
I
Blue
worked
Jeans,
at
yeah.
Fusebox before that. I ran demand gen for Fusebox, which was like a Blue Jeans competitor early days, like
Okay.
2012. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess Corona mixed everything up there a little bit. Like I think Zoom got a huge boost there. Blue Jeans somehow got dropped behind. The remote first part was interesting. We had certain like communication etiquettes that we would have that you still have that personal connection. But it's amazing, like if you do everything in open channels, like we were super transparent. Everything was running in open channels. Like the communication is pretty good. You're kind of like on the same page, and you had like your project teams where you get like your dailies, and you have like your touch points that are regular. What we now do very different. We stayed remote first, and the one big unlock that I could not have imagined to have such an impact on our culture was a virtual office. We have a virtual office called Rome. Short
Oh, I just
shout
heard
out to
about
the
this
Rome
on
folks.
a couple podcast episodes before. One of my founders
Yeah,
was telling me about that. What is
I
it
met
called?
them at
Rome?
SaaStr. Rome, yeah,
Yeah.
ro.am.
Yeah.
And we met him there. We tried it out, and it was just like, wow! It seems so simple, but it's not a text first thing like Slack. It's really voice first and meeting first, and it's really like an office. You just go by, you knock on the
Just knock on the
door,
door. Yeah.
and the beauty of it is you also see if others are getting together, be it like a two or three people that are just like having a short chat, or like a huddle of the whole like eng team that are getting together and like, oh hey, I have some time, I'm going to listen in. Just be a fly on the wall, you jump in the room there, and it's really cool. I've oftentimes I go to the office and see somebody's there and I had a question to them, and then I have both of them there right away, and you just click, knock, say yes, and you're connected, you talk. So many more impromptu conversations happening. This thing where you say like you want to have more of these like
Water cooler chats.
water
Yeah.
cooler chats, those happen now. Like that's something that was quite amazing, and the team unit, like the team has united around that. It's pretty cool. I really love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah.
As we scale up our team, because we're remote first for Team Ignite as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
Yeah.
try to get the Rome founders on the podcast. That's a really interesting story. So you ended up exiting in 2022. Learn from that acquisition process.
I mean, I guess I can't reveal all details of it, but what I can say is that we were using some M&A advisory, and it took longer than expected to prepare. And you never know, right, how the cycles are in the stock market. But we really hit it the wrong time. We like started reaching out in October 21, and then the crash was in November. All right, where it went down. I think Nasdaq went like 40 or 50% south, and I'm not going to tell you what happened to our valuation, but I can just say that the private markets were hit harder than the public ones typically. That's a bit the chip in my shoulders. Like, well, we bootstrapped, and I think we were like the right team, right time, right place. Everything was right around us. We got like 4 or 5 unicorns that were minted in the likes of Showpad, Seismic, Highspot, and stuff. And we weren't, because like we just didn't grow fast enough. That's why I changed tactics, and we this time around we went into VC funded like trajectory there, which came with its own pitfalls and lots of learnings. Since that's my first time doing the VC backed part, it's kind of cool because you still have the product part, and the growth part is more natural, and you have still one element that was new to me. So yeah, that's I guess the big difference between the two. But that's the process we went through there. Yeah, it was cool. We had a good. We were acquired from a PE company. They're really cool guys that came in, then brought some professionalism to it, which was like, every phase of the company needs different types of leadership and different prioritizations and stuff. So I think that was really helpful to get them in, and to kind of see also how that then changed in terms of culture, and how that could be a actual quite smooth and nice process then there.
Yeah. Do I sense a tinge of regret being bootstrapped? I mean, in hindsight, you're like, maybe I should have taken some VC money to grow this faster.
You're always wiser in hindsight, right? It was profitable, so there's both sides to it. And you hear lots of our story is not over yet, but you hear lots of stories also from VC backed companies which end up to be successful but still don't walk away with too much. So the profitability was there, so you can say it was still a success. It's just like in terms of exit, we could have done better. That's maybe the regret. Like you could have done better, but again, in life you can always do better. There's always ways to still
Always
get
room for improvement.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're happy.
So, what motivated you to jump back into the startup world with Get It?
Well, I mean, a few things. I think like just the imagination of going back to a corporate job. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'd fit in anymore. The same way that you'd see like big corporate animals kind of like having difficulties finding their way again in the startup world. I went from big corporate to startup, and that was a good opportunity to go over and also switch into the software world. 2015, and just don't want to go back. Like, at some point, the thrill of it is something I don't want to miss. There's so much diversity, there's so much learning involved, and also determining your own future it's good. I love it.
Well, and how do you think your perspective has changed or shifted now that you're building this second startup?
I mean, I wasn't the CEO before, so that's in terms of operational piece, it's way different. I think the VC backing has more kind of expectation to it. If you're profitable and you're bootstrapped, that's kind of the point. Like
Yeah,
you work,
you're
it works, right?
control
So
your
the
own
only
destiny, and yeah,
yeah, but there you're more controlled. We were more controlled by customers, and now you're more. I feel like we're more controlled with hitting metrics. So I think that's a big
VC sitting on the
difference.
border, like, hey, we're hit these metrics, or we need to talk.
Yes. Well, we don't have that particularly. We're still lucky on that side, but we have it from the market at the end, right? So if you're ambitious, you want to achieve something, then that's kind of like what you're going to be measured by. Whereas before, like if you just hit one or two really big customers every half a year or so, then you're doing very well, and you're kind of like busy again digesting that then there. So I think that's a big perspective shift. For me, it's personally also the growth side. I'm learning more than I thought I would have to, because we went from enterprise to mid market. That was a deliberate choice. We do have enterprise people in the pipeline. We have one that's closed, and one that we're like setting up a pilot with. I had a very interesting conversation at Shop Talk last year. I was basically saying we had to sit down, like we were spend a half a day with a Pepsi guy, and we were discussing and stuff. He's like, "Yeah, you're cool. We should try this and that." And then at some point, he described the process, and he's like, "Yeah, it'll take like half a year and like legal this and that. And at some point, you might get a POC." And I was just saying, look, I mean, I think it's important for me right now to also say no to certain things, and like we're very opportunistic to looking at this. But if it involves us reshaping our platform too much to becoming a Pepsi version of what we're doing, then that's just not what I should be doing right now. So that's why our deliberate choice is to be mid-market in the beginning, to shape up our platform the way that mid-market folks tell us in rapid feedback, right? And at some point, like if you're mature enough, 2 or 3 years in, you can go to enterprise and be like, hey, this is what we have. And yes, they can influence your roadmap. That's what we did that at Pitcher as well. But like at some point, like it's hard to say no if like a Novartis or a ExxonMobil comes in and it's like, hey, we're already customers, we have this and this and this, and you have this tendency of becoming kind of like in an agency setup where you're just delivering stuff and services, and service heavy businesses are hard to scale. I'd like to get to a point with Get It where we can then have that maturity and then have a partner ecosystem as well, where you can be like, sure, customizations on top of what we're doing, go ahead, work with an agency, and that's fine, but don't involve our people. I hope to then be able to price our service
Become more of
folks
a platform.
at a
Yeah,
yeah, I like to put like a 3-4K per day price tag behind the services, and automatically you will not be used as an agency. That's kind of
yeah.
like the
Here's
trick.
our API. go figure it out if
Yes.
you want that custom module
Yes. What
because
we've
you're the
done at
only one
Pitch
who
already is
requested it,
yeah, what we've done at Pitch already was to just have an SDK. A strong SDK goes a
right?
long way. Yeah.
So let's talk about Get It. What is Get It AI and how does it work?
Yeah. So I think if you want to break it down, we're calling it AI live stores right now because if you think of how live commerce looks like, it's kind of similar that you have a person that's kind of actively selling to
Very
you.
popular right now, especially like in markets like India and China, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, China's been popular for a very long time, but the why now point in the US is that it's becoming very popular in the US as well, especially TikTok. And TikTok Shop has kind of taken off massively the last year.
Like
One of our growth
a modern
advisors,
age QVC, if you're familiar with that.
yes, exactly, exactly. I think I was just reading about that on the weekend. I think Martha Stewart, they credit it as like Martha Stewart was like the first creator, kind of right
Right.
with her QVC appearances and stuff. And she at the end she made a lot of money with kind of like a QVC network. I think she called something with Martha Stewart Omni Channel or so.
And there's
So
this
yeah,
opportunity too with AI where I was just reading a headline, maybe it was in TechCrunch or something, where some celebrities are starting to license their likeness to AI avatars to sell
mhm.
products. I think Shaq did it recently, where he
Yeah,
doesn't have to go record
that's
anything. They can just take you can just train an AI to build a virtual Shaq, and now he's there just selling you tickets to the
now
NBA game or whatever.
now you're selling it for us.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think 2 things to that. So yeah, so that's what the format is. The format is like it's live. It's kind of like live shopping or having it's a mix between live shopping and having a personal shopper, right? Because it's the dream if you just want to go shop. I mean, we're both guys here. Like, if you'd have somebody there to just be like, "Hey, how about this, this, and this?" You're like, "Oh, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool," and like 10 minutes later, you're done. That's like, yeah, I would love that. If you look at the commerce space, it got created 2 decades ago when the internet was introduced, and since then, it's been more or less the same kind of experience. The entry point might be different. You might come from social, you might come from Google or so, but you land on a website, and I don't know. It's kind of like a bit old fashioned to have
Yeah, it's kind of
just
like Amazon.com.
something
You
to
search the thing, you have the search bar at the top, you have like kind of the categories on the left, and
yes,
then
and
yeah,
it's
you just
all
kind of
it's search first. We call it search first. Search
hmm.
first, and it's text based, mainly text based. You have some images, but like this whole concept as well of like having a product detail page. It got like it came from a database, kind of like you just have a an HTML version of some rows somewhere, which is like product name, product price, and then 2 or 3 images. And then the brands typically take that and cram all this information into it and like add this little thing there. Now you have UGC. That it's all within that same kind of concept and format. And we take that and be like, okay, let's just change that modality and be like, hey, here's a person. Like, you guys like shopping on in store. Well, guess what? Now there's no longer a trade off needed. There will still be people that want to come in and just walk to the shelf, like literally, and just be like, I want this, and just check out and done. But there are people that actually want to have a more guided experience, where somebody takes them and has this kind of like personal shopping touch to it. And that's why it's personal live shopping in that sense, right? Where you actually get this live shopping experience like you would be going to a show, but it's on your time, and you don't have to like sync to somebody else's time when the show is on. Admittedly, probably right now still not as entertaining as a live commerce show would be, a live event. And then you'd have that guided experience, and you can ask any question, and you really have this like ability to get to the conviction or the confidence of making that purchase that you otherwise would not be able to attain in such a short amount of time. I think that's kind of the clue.
So it's basically taking something that people are already doing. It's been successful for a long time in some other markets, and it's kind of burgeoning here in the US. We know conversion rates are much higher the faster you interact with people, just
Yeah.
generally,
It's
especially
strike
on
dial while
websites.
it's hot, right? That's what you say.
Yeah,
Strike
and
dial while it's hot. It's a sales
right.
sales thing that everybody knows about. Like, if you just answer all the questions people have and give them confidence, then they're like, "Oh, yeah, where
Yeah,
can I sign?"
and now AI can make it personal at scale and every e-commerce website. So the vision here is like just like kind of like Bolt checkout or other similar experiences, you can have get it create a personalized shopping experience for every single web visitor
Yeah.
in your store.
We just get it for you. So instead of Google it, you get it.
I like
We
that.
want to change the paradigm there. We're already seeing that with Perplexity, right? Why Google it? Google it is such a like we grew up like that. That's how the internet was
I don't
created. It
even
was
use Google
created.
anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. It's something
I
I
go to
realized the other
ChatGPT
day.
or
Yeah.
Perplexity like for everything.
Exactly, exactly. And
That's
that's how
wild.
they're shaping how we do this now online. Yeah, so that's kind of like that's the point. Like, we want people to be able to have a different way to do this.
That's amazing. So how do you see this kind of reshaping the space? What are some kind of case studies so far? And yeah, what's the role here?
So bigger vision, reshaping the space maybe first. I would kind of take a step back and say, well, we've had the internet. So I see like this. Basically there's like that went from brick and mortar to e-commerce. That's 24/7 and all the convenience there. And now we're going to the next step is agentic commerce, where you have this human-based interaction you can have, which is smart and like has the LLMs to reason and all that stuff. And then the next step after that already we're anticipating is agent to agent. But so we're representing seller side agents, but there will be buyer side agents. I have the smart Siri on my phone already now, which is like, smarter, let's say at least. But and so those once that kind of assistant that you have on your phone, I think it's going to be the phone. It's not going to be the AI chip. We saw those guys went bankrupt, right? Those guys are going to be doing errands for you. They're going to be doing tasks for you, and that will include commerce tasks as well. And at some point, that might be an autopilot. In the beginning, I don't think it's going to be autopilot, maybe for small things, but not for the big ones. Like, it'll be very fast though. And you'll kind of send your assistant to be like, hey, I need new shoes. Within 200 milliseconds, it has like requested all the seller side agents it knows about and checked kind of what offers they have and what offers they're willing to do potentially, even if you could bid for it. You can imagine it, and that's kind of like a whole new way of thinking. Like the whole SEO space is all about capturing your human attention, right? If you take a step back, now you're going to go and bid for the attention of agents, buyer agents, million token attention spans, right?
Oh, that's
So now
interesting.
I don't know exactly how that's going to look like yet, but that's an industry in itself. There's probably $1 billion question looming there in
Well,
itself,
yeah, we
like
all become
because,
like kind of the owners of the yacht, is how I describe it. Like we're kings.
uh-huh,
People live like this now. The ultra wealthy have agents that they employ to go do stuff for them.
right,
Can't
right.
talk to other agents, other representatives of corporations. So in the near future, like starting kind of now, everybody has an agent, right? It's
Hmm.
infinitely knowledgeable and can go execute tasks for you. And it just kind of changes the paradigm of just how everything works. And if you
Yes,
need an analogy for how it works now, it's just look at how billionaires live today. They probably have
I love it.
personal
Yeah,
shoppers that are going out and
yeah, yeah.
shopping
And
for
the
all
thing is,
clothing and yeah.
the analogy is great because those guys also don't just have one. They might have one main person to talk to, their butler or whatever it is, then the
Their
personal
chief of staff
assistant or so.
person.
Yeah. And they then have all their other specialized agents. They would be like, hey, the cook is going to go to the market and get the freshest produce. The guy here is going to make sure that you get the right fitness trainer that's going to come in every day or something like that. And then if we go to the southern France, the right yacht is there lined up and stuff. There's another person again. So I think that's how I see it lined up. I don't think there's going to be one size fits all. I don't think there's going to be like one power Siri that does everything. That's not how those guys operate. That's not their business model. But there will be specializations in that. I'm not quite sure who's going to be the buyer agent, to be honest. Maybe there's a play for us there as well. Then we like both sides that we can have. Maybe it's going to be pure play, like either your seller or buyer side, just to not confuse the lines. But I do see that, and the same way. That's why I mentioned these episodes, these kind of like
Epochs.
phases of
Yeah,
that.
phases, yeah.
Yeah, because you still have brick and mortar and you will still have a lot of traffic on internet sites. And you will then like start to now have the agentic commerce go up in percentage of overall commerce transactions. And then at some point, the agent to agent will also pick up. But it'll be like, it'll start in percentage to start
Well,
increasing.
even
And
e-commerce today is only what, 15 or 20% of the
that's
entire
the point,
retail market.
exactly. It's a huge market, and people are always like, "Yeah, commerce is so crowded and stuff." But like, if somebody comes in and reduces a lot of that friction, which is still there, which is basically kind of merging online and offline together to have like to not have those trade-offs that you have otherwise online. That can go like you can go from 20 to 40% now. Like almost half of the transactions are happening online. That doubles your volume, right, or value that you're having on those sites. Then, so yeah, I believe in that as well.
Yeah, and the agents will know you better than you know yourself. Have you ever asked ChatGPT or Claude, whatever you use, to tell me something that you know about me that I probably don't know?
I haven't. That's
It's really
a good
fascinating.
idea. Yeah,
It's like pretty insightful because it has all this like working memory of all the stuff that you've been
yeah.
asking it and telling it and processing through it. Because we process at Team Ignite, everything goes through ChatGPT
I
basically, just
mean,
everything. It just gets
I mean,
processed and summarized and beat up and
that's that's something that blows my mind. Like it's my best coworker. Really, I mean, there's so much that I do. Like it's there for me any time of the day.
yeah. Hey, I need to think
Independent of
about this.
time zones or work hours or whatever. If
Have you
I'm
used deep
jamming,
research? I mean, deep research seems like old
yes,
news, but it only came out, 5, 6 weeks ago,
yes,
and it's
yes. But
insane.
it's insane. It really is. Because before it was already good, but now the amount of things I can do now is just like it went
Yeah, it
wide. It
feels like
went
every
way
6
wider.
months, 3 to 6 months, there's just, like, something really new and unique that you can do.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you have Manus, coming out of China right now.
yeah.
It'll just sit there and do work for you in the window over here. I guess Operator was the kind of another version of that, but it didn't work that well. But based on what I
Yeah.
see in Manus, it's like working super well. And it's also using DeepSeek, which is like much more efficient, really fascinating. So how do you see all this like reshaping sales and marketing? Like what is even, I mean, let's start with commerce, but like as broader beyond that is like sales and marketing. Ultimately, we're all building things and selling things, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point with why do we start in commerce? Because we want to at some point also leverage that in other industries, right? The same way in Pitcher, we started with life sciences, and then because they were like first movers, and then life sciences could kind of cross pollinate that into consumer goods. That's why also like the biggest vertical application that Salesforce ever created was Viva, because they were the first movers. They have deepest pockets in life science. And then consumer goods kind of picked up afterwards. And just lots of people that were in sales enablement roles that had been newly created went over to consumer goods and like just cross pollinate, brought that best practices in. And the same thing we see now for AI agents. I see two approaches to that. One is like more co-pilot style, more like what Gong and those guys are doing, where you have still humans there and you're like learning from the humans and like you're transcribing and all that intelligence goes in from humans. And the other side is the fully autonomous one already, where you're now having you did not have any incumbents in there like commerce. There was just marketing, and the only other people that were good in commerce is what you mentioned before, the creator side, which we're kind of selling already. But also their sales only goes all the way to the end of that clip or whatever UGC content that they've created. And then when you click, you hand it off to marketing again. You go to the website. That's also one of the things we're addressing, right, with our post-click experience. Anyway, that's a different topic. But so I see that both of these will converge at some point. I think they maybe have different forms factors, but I do believe that Gong and those guys can become at some point also like autonomous and be like, screw you guys, we learned enough from you. Thanks.
Yeah.
We could do
Thanks
this
for all the
ourselves
training
now.
data.
Yes, thanks for the training data.
Yeah, we're spinning up autonomous sales agents that we like farm out, which actually is like a really great segue into the next question that I had, which is like, what's different about building an AI first company versus like a traditional SaaS company? Because it seems like based on that thread that we were just talking about, AI is replacing labor directly now instead of enabling
Mhm,
labor.
mhm.
Or how do you kind of see that interplay?
So I think the big difference is that since there's intelligence involved now, the age of reasoning, right? If
Mm,
you're deeper into AI, I mean, everyone says age of AI, but what it really is to me is like more and more of this age of reasoning because
cognitive revolution, if you will.
yeah, yeah, agents as well. It's not just the AI, it's the actual reasoning capability. That's what makes us human, right? It's the fact that we can, cogito ergo sum, like I doubt therefore I am. It's the fact that you can reason that makes you more human. So that is changing a lot. I think the pace we're seeing with new models, you mentioned deep research, these kind of like capabilities coming out, it really empowers us to break into new areas very, very fast. And like you said, replacing certain, I mean, I did not think like the product launch we're working on right now, which we're working towards an investor like a demo day almost then in April, and it's something we could not have imagined a year ago to be automating like this. And now thanks to one, and I hope we'll have deep research API access soon as well, because that'll be like almost
Mm,
everything already there, abilities now to do stuff which is amazing. And that's one of those quotes that I like that Sam Altman they did once. He was saying that like pay attention to all the AI startups that are looking forward to the next model release that they have, and not the ones that are hoping that they don't, right? Because there will be a lot of startups that are going to just be like, put out of business because OpenAI is innovating that quickly. But as long as you're building in a space where every time they do an advance, you actually benefit from it, which is where we are right now. We're not very solidly in that app layer, like making vertical solutions that are sticky to customers. That's where you want to be right now. And it's
absolutely.
interesting how that conversation has evolved with investors. Like in the
No,
pre-seed
I
last
knew
year.
this. I've been building AI since like 2012, and when I launched Team Ignite, I could have done like AI fund or whatever. Having led the AI category, AWS, seeing how hard it is to make money in AI, especially the deeper down in the stack you go, I just chose to stay at the application layer. I was like, no, we do B2B software. We do a lot of AI, but we do mostly B2B software, and it's a lot of vertical stuff like you're describing, because that's where you have to be to make AI profitable and,
Mhm,
and work.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
so to
yeah, I
hear a
believe that as
founder say
well.
that back to me is like music to my ears, because it's exactly my thesis, which is just really hard to make money down there.
Yeah, and the conversation has shifted since R1. The DeepSeek was released. To me, I think that was like an earthquake. You saw it in the stock market, at least. I think that in
Right.
many VCs' heads as well, that has changed
NVIDIA
the
took a
narrative a bit.
haircut. A lot of these
Yeah,
foundational model players took a
yeah.
haircut.
because it's like,
Um,
well, now you guys,
Even Microsoft stock was down because they're like, well, maybe you don't need as much GPU if you quantize these models a bit and distill them and make them more efficient and
yeah. Even though
train them.
I do still think there's an oligopoly shaping up in the model space
What's
anyway.
that?
I mean, an oligopoly. I think there's going to be two, three strong players that dominate the market, and everybody else is going to be left
Oligopoly.
with,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sorry,
No, I agree.
oligopoly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's a it's a winner take most market, just like any other technological area, especially deeper in the stack you go. There'll be two or three winners. There'll be one or two incumbents that win, and then one or two new players. And so we clearly have OpenAI and maybe Anthropic,
yeah,
and
yeah. That's it.
maybe DeepSeek coming out of China. I don't know, but they seem to be kind of following an open source route. So we'll see which if they keep following that, then the value will accrue down in area.
Yeah, the interesting play that they just did now is the agentic move that they just announced recently, right, on the OpenAI side.
So tell us more
Even
about that.
though, yeah, I mean, the fact is that they now have also this like the agent orchestration that they basically just kind of gave out and be like, hey, here you go. And they have they kind of like combined two different APIs together for it's a
So they're
retrieval
starting to move up
API, I
the
think.
stack. They've probably
Yeah.
hit, yeah, with 4.5. I think they've kind of like, all right, we're starting to kind of hit limits here, and now we're going to start going up the stack and enabling more of the platform stuff.
Yeah. Well, even though 4.5 is, yeah, well, it was 3, 3.54, 4.5. I think they're going like there's going to be a certain pattern in that. There's going to be a 5 for sure. But they branched out into like exactly
Yeah,
with the O and the O minis and the O mini
almost mean
high and the O
optimized.
mini. Sorry?
I would bet it means optimized. So they kind of go all in, create this huge model, all the resources, very expensive per million tokens, and then they optimize it, and that must be the
And
O.
one of the next features I'm hopeful that they're going to have very soon is like a triage agent. When I put a prompt in, that it'll know which one I want to use.
Sam already said that. So 4.5 is going to be the
Aha.
last individual model release.
Hmm.
And all
There you go. I
models
guess
going
I missed that
forward
one.
will be under this kind of orchestration model. So you'll just ask it, and it'll know which model to go spin up and use. And it might
Yeah.
ask you questions just like deep research does. If you
Yeah.
give it a prompt, it kind of returns and says, hey, here's like 5 or 10 questions that I need to know before I go like spend $5 to compute. And I think
See,
in the
that's the
yeah,
fascinating thing about AI. And that was in the very early days of the models coming out, where you had to educate people what it means to like start a new thread on it with the model. It's like it starts as a baby, and it's like you kind of like start learning and stuff. That's going to be different now, of course. But I always think of it in that way, like if you'd be the wisest person in the world and you know everything, which it kind of does, right? I mean, everything
yeah.
that's at least publicly
PhD
available.
level person that had 1,000 years to read.
Yeah, exactly. And now somebody comes and just asks you a question. Like, how do you respond to that question that the other person thinks is relevant? Or
Yeah.
you try to like just have a look. What kind of person is this? So here's this like busy business person or so I'm gonna give this kind of an answer. Where if it's like a slow person, they're like gonna give a different version of an answer to this exact same question. So that's a fascinating thing I find because the knowledge of people is almost infinite. Like there's such a huge spectrum and
Yeah. We're still
depth
the
that you can go to.
largest large language models on the planet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's fascinating to me. Like, and I think that in itself is like this whole prompting and how important that is. It just gives you a different perspective to knowledge and intelligence and how that works because it is fascinating. I find if you ask the
Well,
exact
that
same question,
recursive
you just say like,
self-reflection is consciousness, is what scientists think. It's kind of like the ability to sort of this like little, 500 millisecond loop of I'm aware of being aware,
"Mm,
and that is
yeah,
like that recursive loop of consciousness. And I think
that's I've
you could be like on different substrates. It could be in large language models. It could be in like kind of this wet brain electron thing that we have, and it could probably be in other things that we can't imagine yet. Quantum computers, maybe. But it's still this recursive loop of like, okay, I'm thinking about how I'm thinking. Like,
no, it's cool. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Now we're in a
Yeah,
sub
yeah, I
tangent, I
love
guess,
that's
but
why I love the
interesting
podcast.
conversation.
So
Very
we can just go
philosophical.
off like
Very
and I
philosophical.
probably need to reread it, but Ray Kurzweil wrote a book called How to Build a Mind, and I read
Huh?
it like maybe 10, 12 years ago, and it was actually I think Larry Page was like, "Hey, like instead of doing this on your own, trying to build a brain, why don't you just come to Google and help us do that?"
Deep mind.
Well, I think he was at Google Brain,
Okay.
which I think is where the transformer came out of. Don't quote me on that, but back in 2017, I think it came out of the research arm of Google, the Google Brain.
No, no, it did, it did. I met the guy that wrote the paper at Davos earlier this year.
Oh wow,
It
nice.
was cool. Yeah, because he
How was
went on
Davos? Like you,
to
how'd you end up at
found
Davos?
Cohere. And one of our advisors kind of brought me into that. And last year we had like this demo pod at this MIT event that they had, like AI event, and we were like, featured there and had our booth, and it was kind of cool. And I
It's really
loved the
cool.
format, and so like I went back to this year as well. It's impressive the amount of like interesting people that are there. It's just like you turn around waiting for a drink at the bar and to talk to anybody, and
It's like
you're
some Fortune
certain to have.
500 executive or some
Not even that. Like I don't
famous
want to judge
scientist or
them by like,
founder
yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's just that they're very interesting people. They have something to tell, something very exciting to tell typically. And it's like it makes you, it also grounds you sometimes. Like I was sitting in this lounge of the AI house, which is like what our advisor works with there. And this guy just sits next to me and would start chatting. Max Song, a fascinating guy. So what do you do? He's like, yeah, well, I'm founding a country. You're like, what?
Certain country, no big deal.
Yeah, and he explained that there's like this unclaimed desert between, I think it's Egypt and Sudan. It's like a few thousand square kilometers of desert that nobody has claimed, and he has a few backers that give him a lot of money to go and like just make a new territory there and make a new country. Like, okay, well, that makes you feel very normal.
I guess you could use
Makes you
solar
feel very
power
normal.
and
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
desalination to
Salination.
terraform it, and
Yeah,
wow, that's amazing.
exactly. Yeah.
Just go visit his country. He's amazing. This episode of the Ignite podcast is brought to you by our friends at Build, spelled BYLDD. Build is a development agency that specializes in helping early stage startups, especially non-technical founders and teams, build and launch scalable revenue generating software products. Most startups don't have 100K to hand over to a big agency, and honestly, for your first product, you probably shouldn't. Sure, you could try rolling the dice on some freelancers, but that's a gamble with unclear costs and a lot of project management headaches and no guarantees. That's where Build comes in. For just 10K in about a month, Build can turn your validated idea into a real product that's ready to go to market. It's a smart, efficient way to build a foundation for a company of any size. And yes, companies that start with Build can and have scaled very large. Their clients have gone on to be backed by YC, Y Combinator, and Google, and raise funding at multi-million dollar valuations. Ready to get started? Head over to build.com. Again, that's BYLDD to connect to Ayush and the team and let him know you heard about Build on the Ignite podcast.
Like,
Wow.
yeah,
So
I'm not wondering. I didn't ask him that. I probably should reach out to him again. Like, if you have that country, who's going to be the president? You're going to be self-elected like from day
yeah,
one,
what
or is it going to
governance
be in?
would you use? That's another fascinating
Yeah.
ChatGPT prompt that you can give like O1 or
Uh-huh.
O3. And you say, hey, go analyze the United States political environment. Imagine you're a founding father. How would you rewrite the Constitution, and what kind
Oh,
of checks and balances would you put in place to make it a better government? And it'll write like, I haven't tried this with deep research. I should probably do that. Like I find that I don't even read anymore. I'll just be like, what do I want to learn about? And I'll just ask ChatGPT to teach me. $200 a month for deep research because I ran out like within the first week.
I do. I mean, I was doing this thing. I had like first, I didn't have access to deep research in the first place, so I was like, where do I get this? And you know what I found out? That if you pay Pro, you also get the O1 Pro. Yeah, because otherwise you only get O1. At least that's the last one that I saw. But O1, it just cuts it short. It never goes beyond like a minute or so of reasoning. And O1, it goes up to 30 minutes, or like it goes very long. It's a much longer reasoning window that it has. Considering that's my most important employee, almost that's like one to one working with me 24/7.
I
Two
think
hundred
about
bucks.
this as a VC. Am I going to be out of a job soon? Because basically I'm already taking due diligence documents and just dumping them in ChatGPT and saying like, hey,
Yeah,
is there any red flags here? And it'll unzip the file and
yeah.
kind of look through everything. There's actually this, founder that, has 20% of the company, but he's not on the deck and it looks like he's fully vested. Like it can detect that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, that's. I mean, I just still think it's going to complement. And I can just tell you, I just recently. Have you ever heard about No Cap? Did you hear about that one?
No, what's that?
No Cap is this the first AI angel, and basically you go to their LinkedIn page and you just write a direct message or something, and then it'll actually email you or it'll have a conversation with you. And basically, it did. That's what they claimed marketing wise. It wrote its first 100K check to a founder without any human involvement. So it was like from the moment it touched base to writing the check. I think I don't know 3 touch points later, and it
I
just
think
so it's
that's
like
pretty
okay,
dangerous based on what I've seen come out of even O1. And I did pay for Pro for a second, and I was running the due diligence through it because I have about 90 questions I think about when I make an investment, which if you recall, I don't know how my due diligence process compared to others, but I've been told for our check sizes like, hey, your due diligence process is like kind of series A level here.
yeah, that's what I told you as well. Exactly. Yeah, I thought there might be AI behind that one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of AI, but I mean, I've also done almost 200 investments now over 7 years, and I've just kind of built this up over looking at thousands and thousands of deals. And so I'll have it kind of look through everything in the way I like to, but it still misses stuff. It's not perfect. Like, I
Yeah,
think
so
what
what
you
I
said is
wanted to
right, which is it augments
yes, it
my
augments.
ability.
So
Yeah.
to close the story on the no cap,
Oh, yeah.
I was like, wow, that sounds awesome. I did the chat. And then like the email it sent was cool. The email response I got like very shortly after, also still cool. I fed it information basically. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then it's like, okay, I sent it to this guy now. And I was like, well, that's not what he promised, right? So to
Yeah.
your point,
There's still a human in the loop.
that's why I
Yeah.
disclaimed it before that it was like that's what they claimed in marketing. Maybe I did one of those just to kind of like go
Yeah.
viral on the internet, but like it's not fully automated. So
Yeah, it's not perfect. I use Airtable for my intake form, and then I have a prompt that I've developed, ping the 4.0 API with the deck and all the question Q&A. I ask the founder, and it'll come back out with a unicorn score, but it's not perfect. And I think it takes human judgment, and this is why I haven't spent the money to build a predictive AI model yet for Team Ignite, is because you're basing those predictions on data that is out of date, right? Things have
that's
changed with
true.
AI.
Yeah,
And
that's
so you're
true.
kind of training it on signals that were 5, 10, 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of what data scientists call drift in the data, where now past data may not be indicative of future performance. And that's like the old financial disclaimer, after all. Past
Yep.
results do not indicate future
Yeah,
performance,
yeah.
like the disclaimer on like every financial
Yeah, yeah.
prospectus ever. And so that's what keeps me from going all in on like an AI model that predicts. And I'm an AI guy. Like I built a bunch of AI stuff over the years that predict things and, bid requests and viewability on ads and just the list goes on. There's lots of stuff. And I know you have to take everything, like every startup is like unique, like a snowflake, and you have to just look at it uniquely. It's like a piece of art. And everybody is going to think differently about that piece of art. You can use AI to score the art and kind of say, oh,
I like that perspective. I like
ultimately, it's
it.
like
I
every
like
start is
it.
a
No, I
piece of
do.
art that you have to assess on your own
Yeah,
merit, like
yeah.
with your own eyes. AI
I
can
think the
inform you.
snowflake is probably not a compliment if you say like we're more like snowflakes, even though there is a big snowflake in the room with the data center, the data guys,
Well,
right?
the crystalline
But
structure of a
the
snowflake,
art.
how like
No, I
no
understand. I mean more
snowflakes
about.
alike.
No, I understand that
Yeah, yeah,
analogy. I mean more like if you say somebody's a snowflake, it's typically not a compliment.
right. You're such a little snowflake. Yeah.
Yeah, you melt too fast. You're not like resilient enough. But the art is it's very much in the eye of the beholder, right? So that one I like a lot because it is true. There's like I was doing pharma sales in the very beginning of my career,
Oh, wow.
and it was interesting to see as well in terms of like how
This is over in
doctors
Europe or
think.
in the States?
Well, but
Wow.
a U.S. company, but in Europe, door to door. Really, it was hard. It was hardcore.
I did that out of college. I worked for Konica Minolta and sold copiers door to door. Whew,
I mean, the pay
that was
was
tough.
okay. I'm not complaining, but it was a hard job. It was 1.5 years of the toughest thing that I had. Like I just drove so many kilometers in the car and stuff. So anyway, the point is like you saw how the doctors operate, and medicine in itself is also an art. It's an art. There is science involved, but because and it's maybe also the comparison to art and the body. There's so many like different um, things that are happening
Variables. Yeah.
in this little machine in this like factory that's producing heat and all that it's an art to piece it all together and to identify what's happening in there without having to cut it open and stuff, right? It's quite fascinating. So I see your point. I think that's a good analogy. I do think though that like to make a bridge over to what Getit's doing, if you're employing an AI in your case now, you'd have it employed to kind of give you scores and stuff. Then what you really need in there is like a reinforcement learning loop that you can be like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna make suggestions. You don't go to autopilot right away, but you'll make suggestions, and then you can analyze it and give it some reasoning and some context back and saying, I love it, it's good because of this and this, or it's bad because of that and that. And we just launched that a few weeks ago called Supervisor Inbox, where you can either go to our backend or you can just have it Slack you be like, hey, I just had this conversation. I wasn't certain about this. What do you think about my response here? And be like, oh, great. Or no, I would do that different. And it updates our knowledge base. Or it just highlights what we call, I think I mentioned that to you in my first call, the magic moments that we see in our conversations, which are just really good to see as well. Like point out the good stuff that's happening. Just anything that you don't have to like, first of all, don't have to go through the transcripts because there's so many conversations happening. But in your case, if you have the score and like a justification why it would give that score, and then you just kind of like give it a few points and like, hey, this and this and this, it can start also developing that. If it has the reasoning, it'll start developing that the same thought that you're also having. It'll still not be perfect, but at least you can have maybe better pointers. And then at some point, if it's learned enough, maybe you can switch it to autopilot, right?
That's what's
But
so
that's how I see it.
great about Get It as a business, I think, is you have e-commerce as the ultimate signal, right? Shopping
Yes,
cart
easy,
size, shopping
zero
cart
one.
abandonment, checkout, conversion rate. and then you can constantly be tweaking the personality of this AI, how aggressive it is, how funny
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
is. And then over time, you could even like layer in what you know based on the cookie ID of the person coming in or what they bought in the past, kind of what the demographic information is. And so you could start like custom tailoring the AI to be like, like the movie Her, right? Where she's just like the
Yes.
perfect date for the guy and
Yes.
just falls in love.
We had that on our slides in the beginning and it was too cheesy. I think we're like, hey, we want to be the her for commerce.
I think I saw that
Because
version of your deck. I think I
yeah,
saw that version. Yeah.
early on.
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
got
that
it
was a while
immediately. I
ago.
was like, "Oh, yeah, I get it."
Yeah.
And I can imagine in the future, like, probably the over under is like, 4 or 5 years, somebody falls in love with the Get It AI agent on some website, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you have like some cool influencer there that's doing it, We're in
Right.
talks with, for example, like the Jennifer Aniston's hair brand. And like if you have a Jennifer Aniston selling it, she won't do it. But if you have something like that selling it to you, it's yeah, I'd go there. Our vision was always from day one, we want to have Roger Federer selling on shoes. And because yeah, we're Swiss and he's quite a legend here.
I think in the not too distant future, that'll be common, and maybe Get It is kind of empowering that. It's like
Yeah,
celebrity selling stuff, and
look,
so yeah.
the big space that we're now getting into is the the creator ecosystem. Because again, it's kind of like our entry point mid-market DTC brands, direct to consumer. There's a whole industry around those guys, and they're helping us get into the industry and like get a foothold, right? Get the wedge in. And we have a whole tactic around how we can increase that wedge and become like like an agentic layer on top of the whole thing, not just like what we are right now. But then, like with this, what we're calling experience engine, or sorry, experience generator. Yeah, we're still working on the naming, but the fact that you can create these conversational flows autonomously without like, or you just describe it and it generates it for you. That's what I mentioned before. I think I didn't finish that part. It was like that's going to unlock two major things. One, it's going to allow people that used to be doing conversational AI together with so-called conversation designers. That's a whole, I didn't know that before, but that's a whole kind of category of people that are doing nothing else. They're specialized in making AI feel human and having those
Yet another new
conversations.
job invented by AI here or enabled by AI, right?
Yes, yes, that's
Speaking of
that,
like, what are people gonna do when AIs do everything, like stuff like that?
yeah, it's a call out. Shima in our team, she was. There's two people from Meta that helped shape the Google Assistant back in the day. That was kind of like the birth moment of conversational AI. And since then, the whole industry evolved, and there's a lot of players doing conversational AI. But it's always been a heavy lift. It's always been a project. There's either an agency or a conversation designer. You do that thing, and then once you're done, you're like, "Whew, it works. Let's leave it." And so that's the first effect it'll have. If you can make these conversation designs now 80-90% of the way like automatically with an agent doing that, then you'll do more variations, you'll change it more often, kind of like having a CMS for your website, right? You'll do more changes, you'll have a blog in it and stuff. So that's one. And the second one obviously is that the cost to serve the lower segments is going to be way lower. And now all of a sudden to the lower segments, because creators are very much a business, right? Some of them don't have the business skills for it and they don't have like a whole project team behind them. But once something becomes accessible, the entry barriers go down and they can also have that then afterwards. So we want to really like make this, we're calling it story selling now. It's like we're helping in this. And that's a big difference in terms of how you engage with a chatbot, even with a chat GPT versus how we're doing our job. One is like the reactive mode, like Q&A. You ask something, you get a response. And ours is more proactive mode where we are telling a story. We're trying to pitch you something. We're trying, like in that sense, pitcher and us, there is a commonality in that sense. Like we're in our core, we're pitching something, and that means that there is certain scripts that are related to products or services or something, or just the brand story or the creator story or so that are pre-scripted, and that's kind of where AI can then optimize. That's a deep insight that we've had, or like unique insight in the industry is like that. So one, conversational AI has been stalled. It's been quite hard, heavy lifting and didn't change a lot. That's one. And the second one is that if you're having a conversation, these things typically have to happen in real time, and fast. I mean, reasoning models will get faster, but the human intelligence that you have, if it's not just a RAG response, but it's something with actual like reflection involved, it's not going to work in a conversational context if you don't have certain things already kind of like, oh, okay, I detected the intent. I'm going to direct it here. This is what we typically say with this, like, hey, you want that product, you have this objection or something. I'm going to just go and say that, and then of course tailor that to the human and stuff. But yeah, so that's what I think is key. So then once we have that, we will then start, to your point, what the vision is where we're going to go towards. You can then start having per like entry point into the site per it's not going to be one to one in the very beginning. At least the flows you have are going to be more on like certain segments or certain demographies grouped together, typically by campaign. Probably like you'll start the campaign over on the ad side, and then you'll know which campaign they came from, and based on that you'll already know approximately where the demography is, because Meta, they don't tell you what exact individual is coming on your site.
Right.
So you have to kind of approximate it there. Then you can then ask them, and we're working with like fingerprinting technology to identify people again if they're back. And if they tell you some email or something, some identifier, you'll know even for like order history and stuff to match them. So that if they return, you recognize them with a fingerprint. And because last time they told you the email, you'll know that it's that person
Yeah,
there,
their
and you
order
can start.
history. How's that
Yes,
how's
yes,
that,
yes.
jacket working out for you, whatever?
Yes, exactly, exactly. And since you already have this and this, I suggest that, right? So that's going to be more personal there. But yeah, so that's how I see it tailoring. There's a mix between dynamic elements, which is just like this, like order history. Like it's at the end similar to what Picture did before. You have the marketing element, which is the pre-rendered scripts, and you have the CRM element, which is the data that kind of comes up over the script, and together it makes the magic happen, right? Because you'll not be able to render. I might look silly by saying this now. I think currently, with my understanding of the realities of AI, it'll be hard to render real time the marketing assets that are looking stunning enough that the brands will sign off on it, right? So you do that one asynchronously with the best models and all the stuff, and like have somebody check it still, be like, this is good, this is good. And at the same time, you'll have the CRM component, which can be more dynamic, which is going to be adjusting to you one on one, and then you combine those two together. So you'll have the creation side gets easier. You can do much more content in good quality than you used to do. But I don't buy into the like we're going to generate videos on the fly, because it'll be like maybe not on brand enough too. And I might be proven wrong on that one, to be honest. And
What
again,
are some of
that
the other
advancement, we're the first ones to jump on that advancement if it does come around.
yeah. How are you convincing brands to adopt these AI-driven avatar sales solutions right now?
Well, I mean, the concept of merging on and offline experience together is one that they buy into, since quite a while. I think we're not the first ones to come at this.
Or they already believe in it, and it's just a matter of saying, "Hey, this is the solution to the problem you already have."
Yeah, there's like there's unlocks like I mentioned before with the supervisor inbox that they can kind of like see, and they don't just have like to fully delegate everything, and it's manageable for them, literally manageable, that they see the quality and that stuff, and they have that's one. And then the fact that it's scalable in terms of cost, because other models, they tried, but just actually having actual humans. So and then there you see like if actual humans are involved, the
It has to be a
conversion
pretty high
rates.
ticket item to make it work,
Yeah, probably not a $20 buck thing. Yeah, that's true.
or it has to
It's
be
more
a
like,
kind of a one-to-many QVC kinda model where it's like, look at this purse," and, like, million
yeah,
people
exactly.
tune in.
So
Yeah.
that's what we changed, right? So now you have it more scalable, you can add it to more items. All it has to have is some benefit of having somebody there that can like helps you buy the ticket, buy that item then there. But yeah,
What's the
so
kinda
far it's
lift
been.
that these retailers experience implementing something like Get It on their product pages?
And it depends kind of where the entry point is. We've seen that once a conversation takes place, we're closing between 15 to 20% of the conversations with an order, which
Wow.
is very significant. Yeah.
And versus the average of what, 2 or 3%?
Yeah, I
What's the
mean,
industry average?
an
Yeah.
average store does like between a 0.5% and 3% conversion rate. Now you can argue that people that do engage in a conversation, they already like more biased towards purchasing something. And that's something that, you have to
Yeah.
account
But
for.
you can run an
But
A/B
still.
test on this, right? And
Yeah.
kinda see like, hey, if we
Yeah.
randomly 50% of the time initiate this, like, what is the overall conversion rate lift?
And I think what we've seen with the A/B tests that are like really isolated like that, we've seen, for example, people coming from Google search didn't respond as well, because, and that's kind of what we're advising brands right now.
Oh,
We
interesting.
saw a huge peak when it comes from social. We said like,
They're
hey,
already in that
organic.
mode of visualization, interaction.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So paid social. You click on like, and it's so easy to imagine. You're swiping through TikTok or Instagram Reels, and then you click on an ad, and you just stay in video.
Yeah, you should
It's a
yeah,
no-brainer.
it
And
makes
there we
sense.
saw like 300% better than the control group.
Well, you can even go upstream and you can start having the avatar that you design for one of these e-commerce sites be the TikTok influencer or
Yes.
Instagram influencer speaking in the ads, speaking on earned media, so not paid, just earned, talking about the products. And then I click on it and it's like the same person, this influencer that's just completely AI generated, right? And those already
So okay,
exist, right? There's
I'll
already
say
AI influencers out there.
I'll say two things. My opinion on AI influencers is mixed. I think that, and I don't like to calling them influencers because there's so many different areas, and influencer makes them always look a little bit like they're trying to manipulate you. But I think the one thing that they have is that creators have this authenticity, and they have an audience that follows them because of their authenticity. And an AI creator will, in my opinion, never have that, right? Because I mean, not I will not say never, because we are in the age of reasoning, and at some point there
Doesn't
might
quite have
be.
it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have that yet. Like you can the fact of the matter is if you can just create them without a human doesn't give them a following by itself. And I think we did see a lot of them get, or a few of them at least get quite a lot of following, but that was just a novelty effect, you know? It's the first time you're like, "Oh my god, look at this AI influencer. This is not a human. Oh my god," you know? They don't go there to go and like research what do they think about this product. You just go there because you're like sensationalist who wants to see how this looks like. This look at this. There's no human pen.
Didn't a guy just marry his AI girlfriend? Didn't I just see that in a headline?
I didn't hear about that, but
Yeah.
that might. I mean,
They're gonna
I
have
could see
AI
that
kids, I
happening.
guess, too.
I mean, hey, I think the
I mean, co
companionship space is for AI agents. It's one of the bigger spaces, and
wow.
it's one of my colleagues that was also at one of the early people at Pitcher. He founded a companionship kind of like platform, and so I know a little bit like about that space, more about that space than I used to, and it's incredible how many people are just lonely and in seek of companionship. So I see that as like it's a logical expansion, and
I
they're
just
very
need somebody
thankful
to give
for
me a
it.
Nintendo controller and change my diapers, and I'm good to go when I retire, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. I don't know. But I do think like it's probably for many. It sounds like if we're in our age and thinking about it, it's like oh my god. But once you're in that age where our society can be brutal with old people or with the elderly, then like you're sitting around and we're just watching TV. Then like isn't that better to have an AI that entertains you? I mean, I'm in my age already talking to the AI all the time. Like it's pretty exciting. So, and again, like speaking of that wise person, it's going to adjust to whatever you are interested in, like just talk your language. And yeah, no, I see a great future for that. And I look forward to being in that age more than I used to, like when I was seeing my grandma before she died in her elderly home. It was not a nice
Yeah,
thing to see. Yeah.
right, yeah. So what are the kind of the ICPs for Get It right now, and which categories are more open to this AI-powered commerce, and which ones aren't landing as well?
So I think the main categories we can address now easily are the ones with considered products, right? So that is in typically in the space of like beauty and wellness, very receptive, right? It's like, skincare, makeup, or supplements and vitamins, like these kind of things, right? Sports gear, sports stuff, and fashion. Fashion is a bit different. I think fashion is such a huge category in itself that we'll see like champions within fashion. But we are teaming up there, like because in agentic tech, it's a lot about also the skills and the actions you can take. So we're right now like working on a partnership with a company called TrueFit. They call this like this genome of like understanding fits across different brands. Quite a clever thing to do instead of like scanning my body and all that. You just say like with Tommy Hilfiger I have an M, and then like oh well with True Classics this. The return rate goes down and you feel more confident to buy and stuff. We're not going to build that ourselves. These are skills that other people have done, and we just give it to the agent to be able to have a better like white glove service, a better personal shopping experience than with that agent. And so we're like selectively working already now with partners like that. Other things we might just build out ourselves, kind of like the like Apple did the first email client. It doesn't mean that you don't have an apps ecosystem afterwards, but the first ones to get off the ground, you might still do. So that's kind of like our approach on that. So yeah, consider products, those categories, not as receptive like are the impulse purchases. Impulse purchases, you don't really need a consultative experience there at all. Like you do that on TikTok Shop, and that's fine. And then I think what you mentioned before, really that's kind of like where I see this going. I think the fact that um, if you buy into the fact that, and that's what I meant, want to spend more time on. The creators are the best salespeople in commerce right now, but their influence ends, and to use the word influence, it ends at the click, and they hand over to a website which is terrible at converting. As a consumer, you could understand why it's so much cooler to just continue getting that consultation afterwards. Like, hey, cool, thanks for showing interest in that product. Let me just guide you right through. Like, do you have any questions I could answer? Or like, would you like to learn more about and then, this, this, and this? And what we've developed is like we call it the happy path, where if you're swiping, because we can swipe to chat, we can swipe through a conversation. And as long as you're swiping, it's just a convenient path which we want to pitch you, which is most helpful for you to get to the information that we wanted you to know about our product, right? And you always have the branching. It's kind of like choose your own adventure. You have branching options if you ever want to deviate from that, or if you want to ask a question, you can in real time ask it. But I think the logical step of having creators that have an audience and authenticity is to let them close the sale. But like in Matrix, you kind of plug in and then you get this 2-second download and you're the brand expert of that brand. You're always on brand. You have infinite memory and perfect recall of everything that this product does, which has been a huge problem for brands, like having in like this kind of, what do they call it, creator marketing or influencer marketing. I think there it's like so much work for them to go and improve all that content, making sure the creators are on brand. And on the other side of creators, it's really hard for them to be like, oh, now this brand, what do they want particularly, all these marketing guys, oh my god, so I think that's a really good one. That's why we see ourselves as
Yeah.
like a marketplace that has the both sides, the brands and the creators, like together in the manner that is described. So the creator will be more like the face, like the likeness, authenticity, and all that, and their style. And then the brand will just deliver that it's on brand. It knows all the right things to say and the technique potentially of how to close it for that particular product category. And at some point, we want to be the store for every creator as well. Like just have a store and be like, hey, if you want to, as a brand, just come in, pitch me. I'll accept it if the terms are right, and then I'll just have that knowledge in there. And you can use me. You can use this link here. I'll be your landing page, basically. Send traffic to me, and I will take care of it.
So yeah, and that builds on the, segues nicely into the next question, which is what's the kind of the future state for Get It? Like if you look at like 10 years, you built a bunch of amazing things. What have you
10 years.
built? And yeah,
Okay, 10 years. I think our objective is to be better at selling than humans, because humans had like 2 millennia to get good at selling, right? This has been one of the oldest trades ever, is to
right.
trade to do commerce, right?
The oldest profession
I think there's another one
is the
that's
joke.
competing with it.
No, that's the joke of prostitution's the oldest profession, but it's actually sales. 'Cause you have to sell.
Okay, because that's what I meant with competing
Yeah,
with
yeah.
it. Like,
You had to
this is
sell yeah, anyway.
okay. So I didn't know that one. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, so it is then right before prostitution is sales. Yeah, that's true. And so I think that's like the aspiration. I think we're at a level, and again, to quote Sam Altman, like we are embracing that the models are getting better at reasoning and all that stuff, because we will then be better at selling. If we are better at selling than anybody else, it means we can maintain a price premium, because that's how salespeople work in the real life as well. And to do so, we're going to need lots of help from partners. I mentioned the SDK earlier was an unlock for Pitcher. We intend to have an SDK for us. It's on a roadmap for later this year or next. Then to have an SDK that makes it easy for partners to come in and add skills. At the end, that's what I saw with what Salesforce did really nicely. With their platform, which is much better than any other CRM, or at least if you look at, okay, that's a different discussion, is the app ecosystem, and all the bigger players tried to mimic that, but that makes it sticky. That gives you the best of the best for all the different areas there, and that's what we want to have. We'll make the foundational layer now kind of ourselves, and get this whole kind of conversation optimization and the conversation flows that you can make automatically. But then which skills that get put in there, like I said, if you have fashion, you have a try on. If you have beauty, you have maybe some beauty visualization or skin finder, skin tone finder, whatever.
I
All
see
these
one of
like,
those almost every week, the try on app. Why do I see so
yeah.
many of those? Like the AI try this clothing on app. I've actually backed one that was really great. Just an amazing team out of Yale. I was like, okay, I've seen like 20 of these, but you guys are the best. But I
Can
see
you
one.
can you connect us to those?
Yeah, yeah. You guys should definitely talk. You guys are fellow portfolio companies.
Yeah.
I have another
So
one called Packsmith that you guys should talk to, where they help beauty and other brands with durable goods do distributed 3PL. That's probably a pretty good partner for you guys as well. You guys are
okay.
selling the same people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, I mean, one, I'm not sure why. I think, I mean, we had that on our roadmap because it's one of those we could make ourselves. There was just recently a drop of some open source way to do this quite easily. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I mean, they had a proprietary model. I mean, they had some pretty good AI guys on the team. And, it's a lot of these early stage startups is about the team, as you know. And I was like, okay, I've seen this literally 25 different ways. And this is like the best team I've seen so far. But yeah, I'm happy to just remind me. I'm happy to
yeah.
make it.
And I don't know, like I still think that the open source that we'd have to probably do a lot of things to get as good as they are there. So it's again like what you were saying with the vertical AI. Like if you figure it out in a way that other people do, that just like,
Well, I see you guys kind of both selling into the same people, right? So you're kind of doing the AI avatar, concierge, and they're saying, well, now that the concierge found me something, like let's like see how it looks on you, right? Upload a
no, we
picture.
want it to be like within the concierge has it as a skill. It's like, hey, you want to try it on? Yeah. Well, here, just upload your picture. It'll be white label or not, and we'll have a logo. I don't care how it's like labeled.
Yeah, yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that you just get it as a service from the concierge that helps you buy that thing. Like that's what you're all. It's all about getting people confident to buy.
Yeah.
And
Now
an
put me on
AI
a
try
yacht
on for
wearing it.
fashion is like the most
Yeah.
obvious thing you have to do. It's the trying it on, seeing it on you, and the size. Those two things you got to solve.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about AI for another couple hours, but let's wrap it up with a rapid fire.
Okay.
What's a lesson, maybe one lesson that from bootstrapping picture that you swear by at your new startup? Get it.
One lesson from bootstrapping is customer obsession. Because in bootstrapping, with the customer finance model, we couldn't do anything different than doing exactly what customers wanted us to do to solve their problems.
Who's doing the most interesting work in AI driven commerce right now besides you guys?
It's interesting, like Shopify isn't doing that interesting. They have the sidekick wasn't that impressive. I would think that there's some video commerce stuff which is interesting, and I'd have to like can I retake that one? What was my thought? I'd given that some thought before.
No, that's fine. We'll just move on.
Because there's not
What's
that maybe my answer to that one would be like, I don't think that there's that many people that are doing really impressive work in commerce. A lot of them are just adding on Gen AI to it, and it hasn't really blown me away. That's why also like if we go to Shop Talk, I remember last March. I'm going again next week, but last March it was like the last meeting I had with the lady, and she's like, "Hey, this is the first AI solution I look at that actually makes sense to me. Everybody else is pitching me AI, and I'm like, what is this? Like, you know?" So yeah.
great? I remember how we got in touch, but I saw the demo and I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to chat with these guys. This is very unique. What's one AI tool you can't live without?
Deep research, obviously, that you mentioned before already. You took it
Yeah, deep
away.
research.
Yeah, I can't leave that anymore.
You're
That's
good.
just any conversation I have with the VC, a customer, anything. I just let it through deep research and O1 Pro.
Actual deep research.
Yeah, every one of them. Yeah,
Okay. Like, because deep research is like, it returns like the 10-page essays,
not always, but it can.
but it can,
But
yeah.
it
You
but
can
it's
keep it to
good.
one page, basically.
Yeah, but I'll still take the time, but not on every meeting, but like if it's a customer prospect, you fought to kind of like get in front of them and have a pitch to them. Like
Yeah.
with
Give me
that,
a
it
one
just helps
pager
you
to
be much.
prep for this customer.
Yes. Give me the executive summary one pager, and if I have more time, I'll deep dive and I'll go in. And we
Wow.
use it as well to follow up afterwards, especially for brands. We'll start like doing stuff for free, create value for them before we actually ask for money. So that's typically done some good.
It's amazing. If you could automate any part of your day with AI, what would it be?
Responding to emails and
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
probably that part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
just
too.
kind of like I hate monitoring inboxes.
Yeah.
Maybe also like on Slack. So I just say like all this kind of like back and forth with DMing, and that's just distraction.
Oh, Slack is the worst. I literally tell people, do not send me tasks in Slack. Don't
Mhm.
do it. Just email.
Yeah.
If it's a task and you want me to actually do it, you got to email me. And so
No, I
some
don't.
people
I
just
don't go that
they
far.
love
I
to share
tell people
tasks in
not to
Slack.
email
I don't
me.
know why they do that. Like it's a chat app. There's
Yeah, we
just
have
no
late.
there. Like I have to
Yeah.
bookmark it or I have to copy and paste it in my task list, and don't do that. That's the worst.
I think they're trying to address that with certain like features they're launching with lists, right? But we have our task app with linear. I can't live with that linear either. That's like pretty cool.
What's the biggest mistake you see startups making with AI today?
I mean, AI and startups today is basically like everything just gets tacked up with like AI on it. And very little of them really make something that's like genuinely different than just like a prompt to ChatGPT. So yeah, that's like just oftentimes very lame.
Because
It
it's
makes
like a
it,
thin wrapper with some rag and
yeah,
prompting. Yeah,
it just muddies the water a bit. That's a pity.
yeah. How do you unplug from work?
I have very strict offline times where it's like little islands of peace, and my partner kind of like inspired me to do that. Let's say I wouldn't want to say force because I really like that. We have date night every Wednesday where it's just like no phones, just take it easy and switch off, and that really helps. And my kids, that's the second one. I have kids, and I'm separated, so I have them not all the time. And when I do it, have them every second weekend, and like sometimes during the week. That's also like quality time with them. That just keeps you grounded and
Yeah.
keeps you in touch also
Sure, I've
with
heard
life.
from other divorced dads that they actually spend more time with their kids now that they're divorced
Yeah.
because, like, you really try to cram it in for those 2 or 3 days that you have them every 2 weeks.
Yes, it's kind of like when you go on vacation and you come back and you look forward to being home again. You know, if you're around your kids all the time, you kind of like it just becomes
Take it for
normal.
granted, they're just always
Yeah,
there, yeah.
exactly. And I look forward to seeing them every time when they come back.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. That's why I like to go on trips because I'm sitting here in this home office all the time, and it's
yeah,
actually so
tell me about
good
it.
for my familial relationships in the house to, like, leave for 5 days and go to a
Yes.
conference or something, even though I hate going to conferences.
Yeah.
Like, if you see me at a conference, just know I'm not having a good time. Uh,
It's funny. I'll have a good time, but it's so stressful that if I could choose, I mean, I choose it because it's different and I like connecting with people there. But I don't. It's like people are like, oh my god, you're so cool. You can go to this and that. Like, well,
yeah,
it looks
I
cooler
don't
than
like
it is
just
because it's so high paced and there's so many people you meet and there's so many things going on. You typically come back, you're so exhausted. and then you have the kids, That's right.
Plug for Club Ignite happening first weekend of November. We're going to have an unconference in the Caribbean, probably Cancun. So we'll invite
Ooh,
all the founders out there, all our LPs, all of our fellow VCs, and we're just going to do an unconference in the Caribbean where there is no agenda. There'll be some like
nice.
activities, like windsurfing, whatever, go snorkeling, but there's no talking heads, there's no speeches, there's no content. We're just hanging out in the Caribbean. So
I love it. Love
yeah,
it. I
should be
saw
a lot
this
of fun.
founders club as well that does something similar. They had their dinners, but then they also have these trips that they're doing. And that's like,
That's basically what we're gonna do. It's like Club Ignite, and we kind of do the same thing when I come to town. Like I'll throw like a happy hour, but maybe I should call it Club Ignite New York
yeah,
City or whatever,
yeah, that
And
is
then
cool.
you just come have a beer. There's no content. I'm not making a speech. There are sponsors now. We've gotten big enough now where we're getting sponsored when we do these things, which is kind of cool. But
Yeah, we
anyway,
did that with brands. I hosted two already, one in LA, one in New York. Also, these the last time we spoke, that was like right after that dinner in New York. Same thing, just like get people together, jam, and just like
yeah,
have
people
some
just need an
drinks,
excuse
have
to
some
just
dinner.
go have a beer with somebody. That's all.
Yeah,
No
and
big
you
deal.
connect so differently, when like you could just sit at home and just only do outreach, and it'll also work. But the connections you get there are just they're way deeper. It can't be replaced. You get certain insights which you don't get from just a pitch.
It's a hybrid. Yeah, you can't
Yeah,
just only be remote. But I also don't like to go in person 100% of the time
yeah.
either.
It was interesting, like,
Otherwise,
that's
we end
something
up.
we did at Pitch all the time. We were always on site. That was one of the big differentiators, and I miss
Mm.
that sometimes. Like, we still like, right now, we're talks with Blendjet, this quite big commerce brand, and I just offered them, like, to go over end of March when I'm coming to SF, and like, "Hey, let's come by, your headquarter there, and we can just do the avatar shoot or just, like, have a short workshop to kinda, like, kick this off." And that I think is still valuable nowadays, even though like it was remote, you could do everything over Zoom. But I worked in also in emerging markets for a very long time. It's so different if you kind of like just roll up your sleeves and you go there on site and you have this personal connection and you get so much more done in a short amount of time. Otherwise, people come chime in for half an hour and then you're still there, like a week later, try to get them into a call again. And if you go there, you spend a few hours with them, you get it done.
Yeah, there is a magic for getting together when you need to get something done. But hey, I could talk to you for another couple hours. Where can folks find you online and find out more about Get AI? You could, I mean, you go to the website, you literally see it, right?
Yes, we're working on a new website, but if you want to connect with me, then just scan this little code here and you'll have all the different contact opportunities that you want.
I sent for people listening driving in the car. It is
Alan at getitAI.
Alan with an AI in the middle, which is kind of cool now that I think
Alain,
about it.
exactly. Friends pointed that out to me once. It's this Alain. It's like if it'd be AIAIN, basically, but it is an L,
That's
the second one. So
that's
it's
cool.
2x AI in my name. So I've kind
Yeah,
of like was
exactly.
born to be doing
Born
AI.
for this. Well, thanks so much, Alan. It was really good.
Lovely, Brian. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.